K Morris, and you are about to embark on the next Pioneer Knowledge Services Because You Need to Know, a digital resource for you to listen to folks share their experience and knowledge around the field of knowledge management and nonprofit work.
Hi, my name is Dr. Stefanie Johnson, and my most fantastic job or work experience is my current job working at the Doerr Institute for New Leaders at Rice University in Houston, Texas. The last book I read was The Sum of Us, What Racism Costs Everyone by Heather McGhee. I am the author of the book Inclusify, The Power of Uniqueness and Belonging to Build Innovative Teams. I had several amazing mentors. Most people have hopefully been lucky enough to have at least one. I had a mentor, two mentors in college, Susan Murphy and Ron Biggio, who I'm still friends with today, and a graduate student mentor, Bob DuBois and Mickey Hebel, all of whom just have made my life so much better. I love spending time on the beach, and I am inspired when I'm writing.
Where exactly are you in Texas?
In Houston, Texas.
Wow, isn't it hot?
It's beautiful and perfect. And if I had my choice, I would always be hot. Like I hate being cold. My joy in life is feeling like so hot that you're like, oh my God, it's so hot, I'm gonna die. Like that feels perfect.
So are we talking jungle type hot or desert kind of hot?
I would choose jungle over desert.
Wow.
Yeah, I want it
All
steamy, like hot yoga, but everywhere you go.
So where did you find this pathway? I know in your book you talk about things that help steer you or steer people, but opportunities that come about. What were some of the significant opportunities that came to you as a young person trying to find your way?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I had some teachers in my early education who were really special. I had a yearbook editor his name was Steve Slagle, who I still keep in contact with today, who I feel like just saw an ability for writing in me that he said, you should lean into this. And that was huge for me. When I was in high school, the internet was invented.
That's what I heard.
Which it was a big deal. It allowed me to learn, obviously everyone today can do this. If you just want to know about something like what are career paths, different jobs I might take, and what do those jobs pay or whatever. You could just look it up, right? Before the internet, that wasn't the case. My parents didn't go to college. I don't know that they, had a huge breadth of knowledge about what are different career paths and majors and things like that you could do. And so it was only thanks to the invent of the internet that I was able to figure out what I wanted to do. And I was in high school, I took a psychology class that I loved. I thought, this is great. I want to do this. And so I was in the psychology book. It says you can go to the APA, American Psychological Association webpage. And so I used my dial up, do you remember this? It made terrible sounds at me. And then I got onto this webpage and I learned about different areas of psychology you could study. I chose industrial organizational psychology. I wanted to study leadership.
The only avenue for opportunity to find out what you don't know pre-internet was there used to be encyclopedia salesmen that would come around and sell, right? And then people would be like, oh God, we've got the whole encyclopedia right here. Yeah. And it was like, oh, you could just look up stuff but it was static. Printed material becomes static as soon as it hits print. The dynamic relationship we now have that people don't even think about now, that did not exist 50 years ago, is incredible.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, but it's more than just the knowledge is static. And maybe now more than in the 90s, but you can search and not know what you're looking for. Yeah. Whereas in the encyclopedia, you'd have to.
Unless you just randomly open up a page and started reading. Yeah. Yes. That's true.
Yes. And I don't know, this must be like terribly not interesting for anyone who's born after 1985. But, for me, that was huge. I feel like people today have much more access to information and what opportunities are out there. But without that, you're stuck in the life that you were born into, right? If you don't know what other places you can go, or what are the things you can explore?
It's the undigital class system, right? You've got your lot in life.
Yes.
Let's talk about digital equity, right?
Yeah.
Digital access equity. Do you forecast a time when that will just be not a right, but it should be the access to clean water, clean air, and internet? Because there's a lot of countries that still have tight pipelines to access, to get there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and I don't know that we can even say that people across the globe have fair access to water that's clean and clean air. And lots of countries have access to internet, but block it and limit people's ability to learn and explore to keep control over them. But if I got to have the magic wand, I would definitely ensure that everyone has access to obviously those basics of water and air and internet, but also education. For me, that was the big game changer in life. Was I got this amazing college education. I went to a small liberal arts school called Claremont McKenna College. I had these 14-person class sizes. I don't think everyone needs 14-person class sizes, but I can never underestimate. Well, maybe I can never overestimate. I don't know what a huge impact.
Either way. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. It's just, it's life-changing.
It is. I totally agree. My history was, I was military and ended up going to college just because I got money to go to college. I never had any intent to go to college.
And then look at you now. Now you're obsessed with knowledge.
Exactly. More knowledge. Some of those folks that have a negative spin on education of late in some discourse about higher ed is so, I just don't get where the position is, where there's a fear of people going to college. I don't understand that. Is that something you see too, or?
I mean, definitely. But I will tell you, so whenever I hear that rhetoric,
I
always look that person's resume up. And to date, I have never found any of those people who are in positions of power criticizing higher education who didn't themselves have like the best degrees. Like, no, y'all don't need education. I mean, I got an MBA from Harvard and I did my undergrad at Dartmouth, but you don't need the liberal agenda.
Get that indoctrination.
Yeah, you don't need to be indoctrinated. And I think it's like, similar to limiting information through the internet, I think it's limiting access to information that could actually improve people's lives. Maybe, the fear is that might change their political affiliation or stance because folks would have more, and maybe it wouldn't, and maybe it changes people the other direction, from liberal to conservative, conservative to liberal. But point is, like, if people are going to make decisions, wouldn't you want them to have all of the information to make decisions for themselves?
Well, you would think. Wouldn't you?
You would think, unless you don't want them to have all the information.
Well, let's go down another path on where you're at now. So that organization you're now the director of is all around leadership. So tell me what leadership, so now let's talk about what good leadership looks like, or positive leadership, I should say. What exactly is the essence of what that organization's all about?
The Doerr Institute for New Leaders was created to help build better leaders, specifically at Rice University, which is where the Institute lives. John and Ann Doerr were alumni of Rice, and so they funded this institute so that students could have more access to develop themselves as leaders. And that's really what we do. We give opportunities for students to practice leadership, to learn about themselves as leaders, to develop a leader identity. That's like, I see myself as a leader.
Yeah, I want to bring this up because on the mission page for your organization, it says, we do not define leadership for you. You create your own definition and strategy to become the leader you wish to be.
That's right. Yeah.
That sounds pretty open-ended.
I know. We just couldn't come together on a decision. I think, people talk a lot about authenticity in leadership. So for me, my approach to leadership as a scholar, I've studied charismatic leadership and inclusive leadership. I think if I were to define the way that I approach leadership as a leader, it would be servant leadership. Like, I believe that leaders and their job is to empower their team and develop their team to be the best that they can be.
Right.
There's lots of other things, management, strategy, all important. But for me, leaders, it's about developing people.
What you're saying resonates to me because it is a personal attribute that, just like education, needs nurtured.
Yeah.
You need to practice. You need to, make mistakes. You need to stink for a while before you can start figuring out. I mean, really, nobody just walks in dun, da, 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 and got the cape on and, yep, I'm natural born leader.
Yeah, absolutely.
But people think that's true. People think natural leaders.
Yeah.
Why?
I think there's evidence that some attributes of leaders are genetic. So like twin studies, you take two kids that are identical twins or fraternal twins that are raised separately or raised apart through adoption.
Yeah.
And then they compare their correlations of, did they grow up to be leaders, or how smart they are, how honest they are. So you can estimate the genetic component of leadership. And there is, maybe it's 40%. And some of those things are like being a man statistically makes you more likely to be a leader. So that's part of the genetics. Being extroverted doesn't necessarily make you more effective as a leader, but it does make you more likely to raise your hand to be a leader. Being tall. So like there's genetic junk.
I'm 3 for 3. Good. Oh,
yeah, you're actually a male, tall, extrovert. That's amazing. But even if it were more than those aspects of leadership that were born, I think that people want, like, it's easy to believe that leaders just happen to be, but like if you've ever had a bad leader, which everyone says like, yeah, I've had a bad leader, then you have to see that people end up in leadership roles that shouldn't be there. And maybe they got there because of those genetic aspects, but it's really about the development part. It's the other 60% that differentiates successful leaders from derailed leaders.
Leadership is a huge bucket to talk about. I come from a military background, and the military is all about leading and developing that muscle, because it all comes down to the people in the organization getting stuff done. Your idea of the genetic structure or the genetic traits that get passed along, your rearing as a child, those types of things that either have confidence building attributes or not, because like you say, with the twin studies, you could have the same structures, but in different environments may have some different outputs.
Yeah.
What would be the first step, or how do you get a freshman in, right, to your organization? So where do you start them as a baseline?
It's a good question. So we also, in addition to letting people define leadership in their own way, because I might love the servant leadership model for myself, and it works for me because that is authentically what I believe. But if you don't believe that, and someone just tells you being a leader is about serving others, you might be like, it's inauthentic, right? So maybe you think it's charisma and you want to razzle dazzle people. That's fine. In the same way, we let students build their own path. We don't tell them step one to being a leader is you join this many clubs, and so they get to choose. And we have a suite of offerings that they can opt into, but they choose. We have classroom style. We have group settings to do development.
Nice.
We don't prescribe to the students what to do, but if I were a freshman, that's what I would do.
Yeah.
And then you kind of accomplish two things at once. You get to know people and develop your leadership. And then we have one-on-one coaching. But even within, say, the one-on-one coaching, students get to lean into whatever coaching goal they really have. It could be, I want to work on my presence or public speaking or delegating or whatever. And we give them assessments, they get feedback, and they get to develop what they think is important for them.
I get the idea of letting have some self-agency in how they pursue this, but not everybody's clear on where they think they should go, or maybe they need challenge, right? Somebody needs to say, whoa, push them a little bit, right? That's my style of leadership. I see where you're finding some resistance, and it's like, oh, you need to push through that. Because these learning experiences is all about challenging themselves to develop, right? So if you let them steer their own course 100%, it's like you may not have reached the maximum you could have.
No, that's true. And I think that's why we use coaching so often. Coaches are letting people set the course, but not necessarily the distance. And so they're pushing people to really leverage this opportunity to grow. But everything you said, it's pretty interesting because that's the whole basis of our philosophy. It's like self-determination theory, but it's essentially that if you put someone in a setting and say, you need to develop your listening skills, and here's how you're going to do it, and here's your timeline, they're actually less engaged and they are less effective. They grow less than if they set their own course.
Yeah. Because if you're told what to do, you're not engaged on a core level because it wasn't part of your decision.
Yeah.
What you had no say in it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are passive learners, especially now. We're used to information being spoon fed to us. Like, I don't have to even decide what I'm going to read. I can just open up an app and it gives me stuff.
Just here, have some.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I know you're not hungry, but look at it. Just keep looking.
Give it a nibble.
Yeah. That's all you need. You need LinkedIn, right? I mean, there's so much stuff out there.
I know. I wasn't going to name a social media platform, but that is what I was thinking of. I opened my LinkedIn to see what I should be reading right now. But if I actually had the agency, I said the last book I read, The Sum of Us, that's something I really wanted to read. I really was like, oh, that sounds like an amazing book. And I would say I remember so much more of that content, and it's been integrated into my worldview more than the crud that I watch in 2-minute videos all day.
The experience of going through undergrad and in graduate school, the difference to me was monumental. I could see why people go for a master's degree because you are fully flipping engaged.
Yeah.
You're just like, versus undergrad, which is like not.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk engagement. How do organizations engage a diverse workforce with the diversity as an intent when regionality produces not much diversity?
So where you live. So, I mean, there's so much there that I don't know that I could answer that in less than a dissertation, but
just give me the executive summary, please.
I'll just pick one direction. So, first, I think it's important to throw out a fact that people, first of all, are more engaged in a diverse workplace. So if you just measured diversity and then looked at engagement, people are more engaged when they work in groups that mirror the population, when they're more diverse. We want to be around difference. Even though birds of a feather flock together, we're all going to choose a mentee who looks just like us. People feel greater engagement, energy, excitement in the workplace when it's diverse.
Does it matter the organization, class of work? Does any of that matter? I'm thinking blue collar. Is there anything that says, it doesn't really fit here? Or is it just everywhere?
I think everywhere. I mean, it's like this, it's like feels counterintuitive, but I don't know that there's ever been a study that showed, it's not that everything's roses, like working in a diverse group can also create more conflict, but conflict is good as long as it's like work related.
Can be good.
It can be good.
Can be good.
As long as it's not personal conflict. It just reminds me of this study that I read. It was on blockbuster movies, theater, big budget movies. And the study started with saying that movie actors are really not very diverse. Like if you look at most movies, they're pretty homogeneously white, non-Hispanic, heterosis, like all the, whatever you think of as the majority, men and women. And then they looked at what movies grossed the most profit, and it was actually casts that were more diverse.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so it's like you think, well, why do we choose these homogenous movie casts? And it's like, well, those are the people that fans want to see. And it's like, actually, you might think that, but people want to go to movies with casts that reflect society, right? I think it's the same thing. It's like, it feels like, well, why would people want to work in more diverse areas? Like, why wouldn't you want to? It's more interesting, more creativity, more innovation. Is it possible there's a situation where it's not true? Like, sure, if there's like, if I think on a global scale, I can imagine there's huge cultural or religious differences that might make some aspects of diversity difficult.
Yeah.
But then your question wasn't like, does diversity relate to engagement? It was like, how can you engage a workforce that's diverse? And it's like, well, you're already halfway there because you have a diverse workforce. And then you need to recognize that when you have a diverse team, the goal isn't to treat everyone the same. It's kind of like give people what they need to be successful. Recognize, wow, we did a great job bringing in diversity. Diversity is good. We should see and recognize that diversity and give people what they need based on that diversity to be successful. And that's where you get the engagement and the high performance.
17 years old, going through basic training in Fort Benning, Georgia, multi-diverse group of people, all pummeled into one bucket of you're all the same. There's nothing different about anybody. And race was definitely not floated as a differentiation because you're all the same. You're all the same.
Yeah.
I reflect on that quite often because there is such focusing on race as the distinction of humanity that once you pick a side, you know what I mean? It's like such a divisiveness. Once you get into that, race and origin and all that can be as prominent as you want to make it.
Yeah.
But if it becomes disruptive, it's not helpful.
Yeah, I think those are,
you know what I mean? I mean,
the two most extreme opposite statements that you can make. Like, the military doesn't see any differences between people. You're not a woman, you're a Marine.
The official language is English. You know, you're all wearing green uniforms.
Yes.
You're all, you know. It's
and then, is there a point where there can be an over-focus on where our races make us totally different? Yes, to both, right? And,
all right, so where's the optimal? Well, how do you get to the optimal?
So, I think that's actually what Inclusify is all about. It's the idea that inclusion is driven by two basic human needs. This is the book that I wrote. One is uniqueness. So I don't actually want to wear all green, have my name be soldier all the time. And in fact, I think the military, I've worked several different branches of the military in the last few years, is actually turning away from that a bit because they're having trouble recruiting top talent, retaining top talent. Mm-hmm. Soldiers of color are leaving the military because, maybe in part because of that de-emphasis on uniqueness. But the other half, uniqueness, is the one, the left hand of the two basic essential human needs. The other one's belonging. If you say you're actually 100% different, you're not the same at all, well, then you can't get that sense of belonging, because we want to be unique, but only to the optimal point where we can still be part of a group.
So what's your top advice, oh great guru of organizational structures? What is your great advice to mid-sized organizations that are either looking at this for the first time or a little nervous about going down this path
of diversity and inclusion? Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's hard to say without knowing all the information, but if your organization is not very diverse to begin with, it will be, because I think if you're going to attract top talent, it's going to be diverse based on the racial and gender makeup of the United States. If you're not there, I think that's fine. But what you can start working on internally is that feeling of inclusion, because even if people were the same, relatively homogenous along certain identities, like maybe people usually look at race and gender, you probably have diversity in there around age, maybe sexual orientation, geography, education. And so you can start implementing practices to bolster inclusion so that difference is valued and welcomed and celebrated. And so that as you build and grow other layers and aspects of diversity, those folks have a soft landing, a nice place to go where they're welcomed and not excluded. They're included because that's the culture. So you can't just say, oh, let's just make it the most inclusive 100% white male organization on the planet. That's not that great. But
I have the same kind of, and I'm assuming here that I have the same kind of feeling towards organizations that will not manage their knowledge well, that organizations that are like, not for us, we're not doing that, they'll eventually go the way of the dinosaur. And, hey, you're just not going to prepare yourself for future-proofing your organization in a smart way.
That's, you nailed it. It's just not going to be possible to compete in a increasingly global marketplace without reflecting the population. With change being as rapid as it is today, research also shows that having a diverse team makes you more adaptive to change, because you have people who see things from different perspectives, getting in people from different industries. This is my beliefs. I think it's the right thing to do to have racial and gender diversity. So we should just do it. And it's also just the right thing to do for business. It is, the data is pretty clear. Companies are more resilient, innovative, better performance, higher stock prices when they have diversity.
When you talked about conflict, and I like to use the word friction because basically it's a rub, right? When you've got a rub, there's a friction, it's going to cause an effect, period. Do organizations think of this with a little friction as a side benefit because out of friction comes change.
I know.
Evolution, change.
You would think, but no, in my experience, I feel like people think conflict and friction are bad words. I worked a lot with corporate boards and Fortune 500, how to add women, people of color to your board. And they're like, well, we have this like whole dynamic going. I know one board member, chairman of the board, said it's like Thanksgiving dinner. Like you just want it to be.
Oh, geez. Oh my.
Like you just want to get through the board meeting.
Don't you wish you would have had a squirt gun or something or a cork gun just as like, stop that. Just stop that. That's ridiculous thinking.
I know. Well,
not to be judgmental, but it sounds a little ridiculous.
It does, right? But it's like, for me, Thanksgiving dinner has a different goal than managing a multi-billion-dollar corporation where you're trying to protect shareholder value by avoiding costly disasters. You want people to fight. Like if everyone's like, oh yeah, let's just do that. It's like, yeah, right. Well, now you wonder why people are shying away from the stock market today. Yeah. There's clearly a lot of reasons people are scared to invest.
So you use the word invest in the dollars and cents, but is it a corporate's best approach to invest into diversity?
Yeah.
You keep saying about innovation and team interplay and all of that sort of thing that creates a new value chain, actually. It creates a new opportunity. So how does an organization invest in it other than if they don't have the resources? Let's say a small, mid-sized mom and pop nonprofit doesn't have money to put a salaried person in charge of this program. How do they start to implement it?
So in the, largest Fortune 10 companies that do a good job on diversity and inclusion, they do have a DEI, usually a chief diversity officer. The ones that are doing it well always say the CEO is the chief diversity officer. Because if the CEO says we're going to do it, we're going to do it. If it were important, the CEO would care. And so if you're a mom and pop shop, you have a chief diversity officer. It's mom and pop. Yeah. Those are the people who create this change. And so I think it's like, you have to figure out, start with why, a great book, start with why, to say like, okay, so we've decided to do this. Why? Like, let's tie it to our core values. You probably have a core value around people, around innovation, around serving our customers. Yeah. Tie this emphasis on diversity and inclusion to other existing core values. Engage in the rhetoric, like you have to say it, set some goals where you want to go, and then come up with strategies for how you're going to meet those goals. And then just say it, keep doing it over and over and over again. Stop doing things that don't work. Add new strategies if you need them.
How do you approach, I know there's no easy fix. You keep talking about reflecting, your organization should reflect your environment and the people in it. But if it's 92% white, and I'm sure it's maybe reverse in highly urban areas where it's opposite. How do you get that diversity to come in? Maybe there's a less comfortable factor where people are like, I'm not moving out there with all them people. You know what I mean? How do you get them? Yeah. How do you cross that border?
Okay, so it's not always easy, right? But that's business. Like, business, if you're like, so we have a really small market share in our town, do you say, oh well, we just have to have a small market share? Or do you come up with strategies to grow your market share? Okay. Even if it's, maybe we got to move locations. Maybe we open another location. I think it's the same thing. It's not always easy. Yeah. 15, 16 years I lived in Boulder, Colorado. It's like, it gives rural Pennsylvania a run for its money on homogeneity. And it was hard to recruit, I'll just say, like diverse, faculty of color at the university. But come on, it's 2022. So things you can do. Remote work. Like, it doesn't work if you are literally a mom and pop shop. So if you have like a storefront, you need people in the store. But most businesses, I would say there's a way to get creative about remote work. You're going to need to do it anyway because millennials and Gen Z are just like not coming back to the office. Sorry, Twitter. It's like not happening. I talk to all of them on the planet. They're not going back to the office 40 hours a week. So we're going to need to find new ways to work, and the ways to work that really work for everyone. And if you have that, then you can actually hire people from outside of rural Pennsylvania because it's remote. They can travel in. there's other layers of diversity. It's easy to say, like, we're never going to be able to recruit, the 13% of our employees are not going to be Black as the US population. Or I don't know what the percentage of Hispanic and Latinos are in the US, but it's, you could say that's just like not going to happen, but
it's really just setting up yourself for success and staying in the parameters you're able to affect, but at least take some action. Yeah. And probably for the most part, raise awareness.
For sure. Yeah. You can set goals around, like, let's look at our competitors in this area and what levels of diversity they've been able to achieve. And that's a good reality check if you're like, it's just not possible. But the shop next door is more diverse than we are. So it means it is possible. Oh, yeah. You just have to ask them their strategies.
That brings up an easy business intelligence kind of a poll you can do, for those folks that say, we're never going to get folks of color to move into this area or something like that. Just take a sample around other organizations just to see if, or not, and just do a little pulse check.
And I would say, like, it's probably true if you're a really homogenous town that you're not going to be able to get a stranger to come in, but you might be able to get a friend. Look at your network. And if your network reflects your very homogenous town, that's on you, because your network can be bigger than your town. And so expand your network. That's like a really simple today challenge that everyone can do, is go to trade association meetings or whatever's the reality for your line of work. Conferences, work on expanding your network. Go to the women's employee resource group at your conference. Go to the Black go to the Hispanic and Latino, the Asian Pacific Islander. Go, and people are like, what are you doing here, Edwin? And then you're like, listen, my company's expanding. We want to hire, we want to be able to hire the very best talent out there. I don't know the very best talent, and I want to. And then if you form relationships with people, I think it's a lot different to say to your friend, listen, I know we don't have a lot of diversity in the town, in this org, but me. This is a safe place.
That's usually the bridge to safety, right? Is a connection, some sort of feeling of camaraderie, trust.
Yeah, I mean, think of in the military, you get stationed all over, right? If you get sent to Colorado Springs and you're used to be in a very diverse place, you just go because even if it's not as diverse as your last place you were stationed, that you have I want to say brothers, your brothers and sisters.
That's exactly.
Your team.
Your personal network. To wrap things up, I would like for you to define two things for me. One, what is your definition of leadership? And two, what is your definition of knowledge management?
Oh, yeah. Usually for leadership, I define it as taking people on a journey to meet a goal that they want to meet. And so it's not just your goal, it becomes their goal.
Dictators are not leaders.
Knowledge. No, not to my view. But, people always disagree with me. They're like, it's still it's great leadership. I'm like, it's something. I just don't, for me, that's not my view of leadership. That's why we don't define leadership at the Door Institute, because if you want to say dictators rock, I'm not going to stop you from that being your leadership style, but no. I also don't really want to teach you how to do it. So, and then knowledge management, that's a harder question for me, but I would say leveraging and utilizing existing knowledge to improve business performance, maybe even growing, utilizing and leveraging existing knowledge to build and grow future knowledge.
Perfect.
So what's your definition?
Well, like leadership, there's so many ways you can go around it. So a knowledge management definition has to, be kind of identified and aligned to the organization that it's trying to define. Because knowledge to one organization, or critical knowledge, may be totally different from another organization. And there's a time element to knowledge also. There is validity and all that as far as how valid it is or how useful it is, and all knowledge should not be kept. So knowledge management is the ability of an organization to maximize, and I like your word leverage that asset and create an asset stream of its knowledge.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So organizations that don't do that or don't include others is in the same boat. They're going to be kind of drifting off and not being very successful.
Excellent. It was amazing to chat with you this morning. Thanks for all your time.
Yes. Oh my goodness, you rock.
Thank you.
Any other pieces of tidbits of Dr. Stefanie's wisdom that you would like to plant out in the world?
I have this feeling that we in the US, but also across the globe, have just been through a really transformative experience as a collective with the pandemic and Black Lives Matter and lots of chaos, I feel. And I think, we all have some scars from that. I really also see within that chaos opportunity, because as we rebuild our companies and our teams and our nation, I think there's a way to rebuild it in a fashion that is stronger than it was before. And I think of the workplace and just really, can we not build a workplace that actually works for everyone and would be more robust to crises that come in the future than we were today? Those are my inspirational words of like, yes, a lot of this stuff super sucks. Mostly it's a lot of bad, but like through the rubble, I think there is opportunity in moving forward to use this as a chance for really transformative change.
Life, as most things, is an iterative process, and that one affects the other, and evolution continually changes everything.
Yeah, we could keep chatting forever because I have so many things to say to that, but this was a really fun conversation. Thank you.
You have just finished our latest Because You Need to Know, a public service of Pioneer Knowledge Services. Please join us on LinkedIn and find us at pioneer-ks.org.